How does a 1/24 scale kit sound with 2-speed transmission and remote diff locks front and rear? Unlocked. Locked. Does that sound pretty good to you? Because it sounds pretty good to me. Let me show you one. This is the X-Row Kuro King. Here's a 1/18 scale. Here's a 1/24 scale. And here's a 1/24 scale. It's kind of in the eye of the beholder scale, and I've said this before on my channel. Scale doesn't always mean it's going to be the exact same size. This is the RGT that we've done a video on before. Clearly one of these is not like the other. Just keep in mind that anything like this, and I still haven't finished it, but it's time to show you because it's been on my shelf long enough. Anything like this with all these electronics inside it and these tiny little wheels, they're just in a different class. So if you're buying one of these, you're buying it for the scale experience. You're not buying it as a driving car first and foremost, which is what these guys are. Diff lock really helped there. I could disengage and turn. That was actually really satisfying. What you get with the Kuro King is a sweet kit. Now, most of this stuff these days is ready to run, so I was thrilled when I discovered this thing. It was actually, gosh, 18 months ago now. I've been waiting to get this done. You need 2 tiny servos and another micro servo, a bunch of tools, paint, and electronics, and it tells you all the stuff you need. You've got 3 things going on with servos inside the car. You've got the high-low shifter, the diff lock shifter, which does front and rear at the same time, and your steering. And you've got a light controller, which gives you braking and indicating as well, and switchable headlight. And you've got your ESC motor, and of course a little battery, and it's a 2S battery. Like any kit that is a hard body, it's got a bunch of stuff on that to get the thing finished. And then you get into the chassis. Good instructions, straightforward, they tell you what you need. I enjoyed it. Now, my favorite part is building the mechanical parts of this stuff, and this came somewhat assembled already. You had the axles, the suspension, and everything attached to the chassis, and it came sitting in this foam. So if you buy this thing, you're buying the chance to make your own body. I got mine from Tiny 4x4. They're a UK store, and very friendly couple of guys there. Very much enjoyed talking to them. They include their cool little cones for driving later. And this is the size of the diff and axle. So much smaller than other 1/24 scale vehicles. Look at the size of the diff pumpkins. Everything about this is tiny, even the outdrive. So although it is probably closer to a technical 1/24, it's more like a 1/28 car. This cable is the actuator, and it's got about 1 millimeter of travel, or 2 mils of travel almost, to lock and unlock the axle. There's a very tiny amount of travel, so these things, they're so small. Now the doors don't open. You've got a spare wheel that you can mount on the back, but the hood does come off, courtesy of magnets, which I got the polarity round the right way this time. My BRX02 wasn't so lucky. And so I've painted that, and then the body itself sits on this in the same way that the RC Run does. You kind of just pull it forward, it flexes off, and it's got like a little slot where the body sits. And same with the rear. There we go. So there are little tabs front and rear that sit inside these slots. Okay, I've bound it to my GT5. There's a 2S battery here. So we turn it on. There we go. I'd like to show you what's going on in here because there's quite a lot to see. There's a light controller, that when nothing's happening, it sets the indicators to flashing, and then when you steer, it indicates in the direction that you're steering, and when you drive forward, the brake lights come off. They stay on when you're reversing, but they go off when you go forward. And lastly, the headlights are on a separate channel, which you can turn off and on at will. Now the motor in here is teeny tiny, it's so tiny, and it's running through a little tiny gearbox. This is the same kind of motor and gearbox you'll get in a lot of the winches, a lot of the little RC winches. So we're in low speed at the moment. It does actually have neutral where it can roll, and then you've got high speed as well. Diff lock, I showed you the axle before with the actuator cable. Those cables end here, so when you lock and unlock, unlocked, locked. The Kuro King X-Row 1 has telescoping metal drive shafts. We've got friction shocks. Springs are inside, and your chassis mounted steering is up front. It's fast and strong, and I didn't have to use this, but I used the Kuro King ESC in the back. So the body goes in, you put the back in, and then you just pull out the front a little, and then it slots in. And the hood has these little holes in the back, and the magnets hold it in place. And now we've got a car ready to drive. Keep your expectations realistic. We don't have these relatively huge chunky tires. We've got just little teeny tiny tires, so it's limited. This is a light trail driver where you can enjoy the mechanical parts of it working, rather than actually some kind of hardcore off-roader. But all the same, this is a driving car for trail use. It's not really a heavy-duty off-roader. I love that there's metal bumpers, metal shafts, just metal underneath. Even the side pans are metal. The wheels are metal bead-lock. It's a beautiful car. It's just so nice. My bodywork leaves something to be desired. I've only done a light coat of black, and I need to really mask everything and think about painting this body because it deserves the attention. But I wanted to get it into a state where I could just show it to you guys, because it's been long enough. It's just time to bring this thing to the light. I've been talking to Mark at tiny4x4.com. They actually have a few other tiny cars as well. There's the Orlando. This one, which they found through one of their contacts, they hear about stuff that the Western world doesn't necessarily get. And so these guys import some unusual things. Have a look at tiny4x4.com. They have a few other brands there as well. It's just such a fun little thing. Thank you for watching, guys. Throw me a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you again next time right here on RC-TNT. Cheers.